Hi everybody and welcome back for episode 2 of Miss O'More on Air. So, last episode we were looking at the historian and the archaeologist. Today we are going to be looking at ancient Rome. So ancient Rome is the third chapter in the junior cycle course. It consists of the daily lives of different groups of people, religion, leisure, and how they influenced our lives today. It is a hefty chapter, so buckle in and let's get started. So, the best example we have of Roman life today is Pompeii. Pompeii was a small little island off the coast of South Italy, and one day it was hit with a very big volcano. This volcano caused many things to be cemented into place, so we were able to see how people lived, their food, furniture, clothes, all of their different pottery and designs, and you can actually still go visit it today. The best example, however, if you can't go visit it, is there's a documentary on Disney Plus all about 6 bodies in Pompeii, and they talk about different ways that they look at the bodies, how they examine them, the x-rays, how they're able to tell how old they are, their jobs, and they can tell that some of them have had surgery, stuff like that. I really recommend it. So, we have 2 different types of people in ancient Rome. The first group of people is the patricians. These are rich people. These people have all the power. They are living their best lives. Now, how we remember them is we go rich-ins. Okay, they're rich. Rich is in the name. The next group is the plebeians. They're the plebs. They're just meh, right? These are the ordinary workers. These are people that are not rich, they have no power, and there was a lot of these people in ancient Rome because of that. Now, within these citizens, we have women and we have slaves. Women and slaves do not count as part of the population when we're talking about citizens, okay? Only rich, powerful men counted. What's new? So, 2/3 of the population, therefore, were not considered citizens. Now, some women didn't have all that bad of a life, okay? Some of them, ran shops. Some of them made crafts and sold them. It wasn't too bad, okay? Now, you did have them not going to school. They were educated at home, sewing, cooking, learning how to make babies, stuff like that. But some of them that were plebeians became hairdressers, priestesses. They became midwives and nurses. So, women, while not formally educated, still had a place in ancient Rome. Slaves, on the other hand, however, had no rights, no pay, and they weren't really entitled to anything. Now, some of them were well educated, some of them became doctors for their master's family, some of them became teachers for their master's family. The majority of them, however, were treated quite badly. They were servants, and some of them became gladiators or chariot riders, which we will talk about in a minute when we get to leisure. Now, another big difference in how these people lived was where they actually physically lived. So when we're talking about patricians, they lived in big country villas known as domuses, right? So these were big houses with giant gardens, colourful mosaics and murals all over. Some of them even had pools. Okay, there was big rooms upstairs and downstairs. There was room for slaves to sleep. Everybody had their own individual room, a massive kitchen. They were living their best lives. Now, plebeians, on the other hand, however, did not live in such luxury. They lived in apartment blocks known as insules. Okay, these were the first apartment blocks in history. They were very high, and about 4, 5 floors, sometimes 6 or 7. They were made from wood, and the higher up you lived, the cheaper the rent was. And this was because they caught fire very often. And usually people died if they lived up on the top floor. So you had a lot of poor families living up the top, and they were squeezed into a tiny room. So you can imagine that hygiene standards were not quite there, okay? They didn't have running water, they didn't have toilets. So if you wanted to go toilet, you either had to go down 5 flights of stairs and go to a public toilet on the side of the road, or you would, go in a bucket and then throw it out the window, which was more often than not what happened. Our third big difference is how they ate. So for food for rich people, they had a very varied diet. They ate a lot of meat, nuts, fruit, all different types of food. And one thing that I like to link to is if you think of the second Hunger Games movie, and Katniss and Peeta were in the Capitol, and they were so full of food that they stopped eating. And somebody says, oh, why don't you just have this little magical drink? That actually comes from ancient Rome, where at a dinner party, people would make themselves sick with this drink and then continue eating. So a lot of food waste, very little thought for people who had no food, like the plebeians, who were on a very stable diet of bread, porridge, some meat if they were lucky. But a lot of plebeians actually were on handouts from the government, where they were given bread and oats and porridge. And this became known as the dole. So this became known as the first government handout like we have today. Now, something that all people had in common was their religion. Religion was very big in ancient Rome. They viewed their gods as a family. And a lot of people, I think, really enjoy this part of ancient Rome because they can relate it back to ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, Norse gods, all these different families of gods that we have in the world. Each god has a different job, very similar to other gods in other cultures. And you would pray to a different god depending on what you needed. So if you needed, a better job, you would pray to the god of jobs. And they literally had a job for every single god that they could think of. Altars would be placed everywhere within cities and within homes, and people would pray regularly throughout the day. Now, this all did change, however, when Emperor Constantine took Christianity on himself and became a Christian. So this was after the death of Jesus Christ, and Christians were persecuted in Rome for a long time, which means that they were killed and hunted. But Emperor Constantine, for whatever reason, took the religion on, and because he was the emperor, other people followed suit. So this meant that Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, which is why there would be a lot of Christianity religions in and around Europe and the Mediterranean Sea, because that was the Roman Empire. Another thing that the emperor was highly involved in was leisure. So leisure was kept cheap to keep people happy, because unhappy people will fight the government and fight the emperor. So you had the baths. Now the baths were a place where people could go, kind of like a sauna or a spa. You would have different pools, hot pools, cold pools. There was a gym, a library, a massage room, and people would go and spend the whole day there. And entry was usually free, which was really great for poor people. There were separate rooms for men and women, and people usually walked around naked too. Ancient Rome did love their naked people. Moving on to naked people, they used to horse race naked as well. So in the Circus Maximus, which again you can go and visit in Rome, this was a massive 7-kilometer track around a circle where people would race horses, 4 different teams, 4 different colours, and they would race to see who would come first. This is quite dangerous usually because you would be trying to knock the other opponents off their carriage, or you would hurt the other horses to make them slower and stuff, but it was very popular, as you can imagine. However, the most popular form of entertainment is the Colosseum, one of the wonders of the world, still able to go and visit in Rome. It's absolutely massive. It can fit about 750,000 people, and they would pack people in back in the day. They would go and they would watch gladiators fight. So if you remember when I was talking about slaves, this was a very popular job for slaves to take, because if a slave did very well in the arena, they could actually become free and earn a citizenship. This is where the emperor comes in now. So the emperor would usually attend these fights. And if you think of the latest Gladiator movie, or even the Gladiator movie, the original, you would have the emperor, and after a fight, the emperor would stand up with his thumb in the middle. And depending on the popularity of this gladiator, he would either put the thumb up for the gladiator to survive, or the thumb down for the gladiator to die. And there was a lot of pressure put in on this fighting. Another fun fact that I always love is that if you became really popular as a gladiator, they would take your clothes from you and wring out the sweat. They would bottle the sweat and then sell it to your fans. And this became a great way to make money because people loved to wear the perfume of their favorite slave who was a gladiator. And you would say, oh, who are you wearing? And you would say, oh, I'm wearing blah, 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 from his latest fight. And this is what people actually did. So Roman people were absolutely crazy, but they've influenced our lives so heavily. So different groups of people took back their land from the Romans, and because of that, we have a very diverse culture. So if you think France, Germany, England, Spain, they all took back their land, but we still kept on some things. So the Roman language was Latin, and Latin forms a basis for English, Italian, Spanish, some German, and some English. So because of Latin, we have loads of main languages now in the world. We base our calendar on the Roman Empire, so July is named after Julius Caesar, and August is named after Emperor Augustus. 30% of words in English also come from Latin, so if you think the word circus, that is a Latin word, among many other things. Also, if you think about science, lots of things in science are given a Latin name. So humans are Homo sapiens. That is the Latin name for human. And that is the same across the board for loads of different species, especially when it comes to dinosaurs and stuff like that. They're given a Latin name and then we just kind of translate it back into English for everyone to read and understand. Well done, guys. That was an absolute trek to get through all of the Roman Empire there. We did it though in less than 12 minutes. Any questions, as always, please let me know. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. And hopefully now this will serve you well as you study for your exams. And I will see you on the next podcast. Bye.